Hey guys, Tyler2K here. Today we're going to take a look at the Azucena trailer again, specifically the supplement and speculation part, where we'll be doing a more deep dive into the trailer and talk about basically things I couldn't cover, whether due to time purposes or just the fact that, you know, as the game, more and more information comes out. For instance, we just had the Gamescom trailer. If you haven't seen my breakdown from yesterday, check that out, top right corner. But we get slowly more information. Now, granted, with Azucena, we don't get too much more information, but it's still worth another look at her to kind of talk about, like I said, what we haven't talked about so far. As usual, this is a unreleased product. Tekken 8 is now officially going to come out on January 26th of 2024. So hopefully you pre-ordered. I already pre-ordered myself, and I'm doing a her pose right now. Yeah, I'm going to be on the lookout for, like, you know, third-party keys, because, yeah, unfortunately there's, like, localization pricing, and you can get it way cheaper elsewhere in the world. So that's going to be my plan. Cough, cough there. Yeah, so let's go ahead and get into this. Okay, so once again, yeah, so I did this part of the trailer a couple times where I took a look at the frame data on presumably 1-1 into LIB Stance. And as usual, if you haven't seen the actual breakdown where I talk about her for about like 3 or 4 minutes, top right corner for all that information first, and then come back. You know, you're not going to miss anything. Just come on back afterwards. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and talk about that. But once again, from the video, I had shown that this move appears to be I9. Now, I'm not stupid. Almost certainly this is I10, and just one of the frames got cut out for whatever reason. But more importantly, just the fact that she might have some sort of NC option, because this is on punish, we don't get any of the counter hit sprite, that this is NC into LIB Stance, which is pretty good. Okay, so LIB Stance, or what was it, Libertador? I can't remember exactly. Because, yeah, I mean, how often would you use that word in Spanish? I mean, come on. The Liberator stance, I guess. But, yeah, if you don't know, evades both highs and lows. Supposedly, she is vulnerable to mids, although if you compare this stance, which kind of acts similar to Negan Intimidation stance, and we'll go over that later on in the video into much more depth, at the bare minimum, he can block while in stance. Also, in a preview to similarities between LIB Stance and Intimidation int, yeah, she can also move, which leads me to believe that if she can move forward, she can also move backwards. Also, one other thing, and again, we'll talk about this later, she does sidestep while in LIB Stance. Now, granted, she is in back churn, and maybe back churn has some sort of special rules to the stance, but we'll see that it seems to be overall that Azucena seems to be a beginner-style character. Very basic, simple strings, probably Tekken 8 to like the nth degree of just ease of use and just craziness that goes on. Again, Bandai Namco has designed this game to be aggressive, and if you watch this trailer, she's pretty much holding forward like the whole time and just evading everything. So, okay, so automatically sways out of the throw. Now we perform this sort of Hellsweep. I don't believe this is actually a standing Hellsweep. What I think happens is when she enters into like LIB, and maybe they'll call it like evasive LIB or something to that effect, she gains access to additional attacks. So notice how when she like transitions into LIB and then goes into like evasive LIB, there's kind of a splined animation. So it's immediately pops. So that leads me to believe that kind of similar to how Steve can tap like 3 duck, duck left. This might be something similar. Now that's not to say that LIB to the right won't have will have different moves like Steve if he ducks right or ducks left. They are different moves that come out. Because Azucena is probably going to be a beginner character, I'm inclined to believe that they're going to be the same options out of stance regardless. So basically it's just going to be, is she in a standing state? Is she going to be in LIB Stance? And is she in evasive LIB? I think that's just going to be the 3 states apart from like grounded and full crouch. But that's all you have to worry about. So I think overall, you're not going to have to worry too much about defeating her. It's just going to be a game of, does my character have like a very strong mid attack or not? And then what risk reward, what should I go for? Should I go for a low or go for a high to mix up into my mids? Now, granted, there are certain characters who don't have the best mids. For instance, you know, Dragunov, if Azucena can guard in LIB Stance, it's going to be very tricky. With that being said, I mean, Paul is a great character with a great mid, right? With up back 2, the homing counter hit launcher. So again, kind of similar to Tekken 7, haves and have-nots. Tekken 8 will definitely, at first, at the bare minimum, really revolve around what your character can do to beat certain options, period. But yeah, once again, I think this is an evasive LIB into a Hellsweep. I don't think she can perform this out of standing. For instance, Leroy can no longer perform his standing Hellsweep, which I think hits on 18. So this looks to be roughly 17 or 18. So if we take Leroy as an example, that leads me to believe that, yeah, Azucena will get the same treatment. She cannot perform a standing Hellsweep. She requires stance. In this case, evasive LIB. Okay, so as I had shown you guys, this transition into LIB stance looks very similar to Miguel's Savage stance. Keep in mind, with Savage stance, he doesn't have any natural like option select evasiveness, but he can actually guard in stance. And one other thing that he can perform, Miguel can do diagonal canceling. So for instance, when he enters into Sab, he can perform down forward 4 out of Sab to get like that really beefy I-14 weak side tracking mid. But yeah, this kind of goes to show you that the animation isn't quite the same, but still maybe applies in the same way. Okay, so we see, most importantly, the high evasiveness, but notice how King goes for 1-2, and the movement is so strong for her auto reversal off LIB that she's able to evade the incoming mid as well. So that kind of leads to credence that maybe if your character has some sort of normal I-10 counter hit mid option. So for instance, King 2-1 is high mid, Dragunov 1-2 high mid. There are kind of few characters with high mid options like Brian 2-3 high mid, so on and so forth. Just the evasiveness gets around it. Whereas if you play against a Leroy or a Jin, these multi-hit strings that are high starting make it such that the opponent really cannot guess when you're going to stop. And for instance, with Leroy, where you have to tap back 2 and like time back 2, if you do back 2 and then like tap 2 just like without thinking, you will essentially get counter hit knocked down by Dragunov, by Brian, you know, so on and so forth. But it looks like Azucena will not have that problem, and for that reason alone, I mean, already she's looking really fucking good. Okay, so we get the counter hit throw spark. So again, throws can counter hit in Tekken 8. In Tekken 7, they made it such that you can counter hit a throw, although the window for counter hitting them is very poor. Like it has to be during like the actual active frames. Also, I'm noticing this alpaca is transparent. Shout out Sobug. But yeah, now in Tekken 8, throws can counter hit, and also a very 2D mechanic where you can throw the opponent during recovery frames, and as such, throws become punishers. Will also be very, very strong. So for this situation, normally if the opponent is to your right, the throw break is a 2, but because he's stuck in recovery, it's a counter hit throw, and as such cannot be escaped. Now with that being said, someone did mention in the comments that Rip had found that counter hit throws can be broken, just presumably have a much smaller window. For context, the smallest window throws are typically 6 frames. There are a few exceptions, for instance, like the running tackle Marduk, which I believe is a 2 or 3 frame window, but for the most part, the quickest window breaks are 6 frames. So yeah, we're yet to see if throws cannot be escaped during recovery or not. In my experience, they cannot. Even through mashing, you can't escape them. So we'll see. Okay, yeah, this sucks. I mean, I'll be honest, this fucking sucks. So we see this like little bit of a kind of like Lydia / Fakum Lum down back 4 action, except out of her back turn positioning, she cannot get hit. So even though she's in BT, she can basically perform a Josie backsway. But even though, yeah, she is BT, she still has the evasiveness. So it's hard to say if that means she can evade out of forward stance. Like, for instance, Josie can perform back 3+4 when forward facing, or if this is only out of BT. But yeah, this is going to be super annoying, specifically because, like, look at the spacing. Even at its, like, non-apex, the actual animation, like, I mean, that wall stand 3 is missing by at least, like, half a range. So unless you're playing Bob, maybe Dragunov, Jack or something, I mean, that's probably not going to feel great. Now, of course, it really should be noted that this evasive stance doesn't necessarily mean that she evades everything. For instance, this might only evade like I-12s and I-15s, but if you have like a Jack wall stand 1, Dragunov wall stand 2, or hell, even Brian wall stand 1, she might not be able to recover in time to evade it. So while you escape the small punishment, it's very possible, because like here, this is the evasion, and then the apex, right? That wall stand 1 on 15 is going to likely hit her, presuming that she can't guard in this stance. So that's one thing of note. Maybe off BT transitions, you're going to have to make some more harder reads, almost kind of like you're playing Xiaoyu in that situation. Although, unlike Xiaoyu, we don't know if, you know, for the most part, if Azucena will be like a backturn character, if she has quite a few entries. Like, for instance, if this, who knows, maybe this down back 4 entrance, or down back 3, I guess, in this position, maybe that's like one of the only things she has, or maybe she only has like 3 of them. So who knows? We don't know quite yet, but this will definitely be frustrating at first. Okay, and then we get the Bruce style 442 Sabaki. Notice how she kind of is not in her normal kind of ready stance. Let's confirm. I just want to make sure. And sorry, we're in slow motion, so when we jump time. Okay, so yeah, her hands are like in normal ready. And then I think when she does her backsway, they're elevated. Yeah, so she's now in like a brawler stance. So same thing. I'm not going to give too much credit or credence to the possibility of Azucena being more than a beginner character. I'm inclined to believe same thing. Maybe the evasiveness allows her to enter into stance, or maybe she's kind of similar to, again, talking about Josie, who can perform 2 special attacks after back 3+4. I don't think this will be a real stance so much as just, you know, a general 2-move option. You know, you kind of get in this weird part when you're like doing balancing or speculating, where it's like, when is a stance? And I made a similar point in my Jack video, but obviously come to find out that the down 3+4 stance is like very much a stance for Jack. But for this, I wouldn't necessarily call this a stance. I think I'd call this an evasion into an escape. And once again, she's doing basically Bruce 442 Sabaki, except with her left hand, and she's doing it out of that evasive stance. But same thing. I am not going to give credence to the fact that there's maybe more than 2 options here. I think for the most part, when it comes to Azucena's character design, and we'll talk about it later more, but basically Azucena looks like a hybrid of Josie, Lucky Chloe, and maybe like a sprinkle of Katarina and Eddie. But for the most part, I think the 2 major influences are, you know, going back again, the Josies and Lucky Chloe's. I think that's ultimately the design practice here, which unfortunately kind of puts a hamper in the possibility of Josie slash, you know, Lucky Chloe being in the future. But I can definitely see, due to like the controversy with Harada talking about like a Lucky Chloe, I'm not going to say it because I'll probably get demonetized if I say that word, but just look it up, Harada, Lucky Chloe, and rant or something like that. But yeah, it was a mistranslation, but I wouldn't doubt if we're going to see Lucky Chloe in the future. Okay, so we see Blom Bomb, minus 14. We see a punish with back 1-1. Similar to 1-1, she enters into LIB Stance, although from here, she is in BT. So, yeah, not quite the same animation because she does like the kissy face. So maybe this is like a slight variation on the LIB Stance, but with overall the same rules. So she sidesteps, of course, which we'll see later on as well. but she's still in this position, is still in effectively in LIB stance. So I wouldn't, same thing, I wouldn't necessarily call this a stance so much as maybe like a back churn LIB, which will probably be what it's called. But yeah, so from this way, she's still in LIB stance. When she's in LIB the other way, forward facing, she's forward facing to you. Of course, at this point, we don't know if there's additional rules. All we know is Azucena performs a BT2, which from the counter hit spark, it's blue sign right here, leads to an attack throw. And because Azucena is basically an MMA grappler, we see like high flying stuff. We see the arm bars, locks and whatnot. And then of course later on we see more like proper weird like high flying stuff, not in like the realm of like professional wrestling or MMA, but still. Okay, again, I talked about this in the shorter video. She enters into BT with the exact same animation as Lucky Chloe back through +4. Also, I don't believe there's any special crushing here. This is just a normal I jump over you, which is exactly what Lucky Chloe can do. So Harong stays in RFS, goes for the forward 4. But because she's already entering into LIB, and actually she does like, I guess it looks like maybe the kissy LIB, so the BT LIB, she has the general evasiveness. So maybe that's like the stitch here, is that off of the BT LIB, she doesn't have the auto sabakis that we'll see later on. Maybe she's just highly evasive and then can execute her game plan from faster attacks off of BT. But of course we see, once again, BT LIB. So I'll keep calling it kissy, why not? Because it's actually perfect. And then evades the back 4. So that's not anything new. Sorry, mid option. Of course, once again, LIB is weak to mids, but in this case, she kissy it around, and now from here performs essentially back churn 4-3, some sort of back churn mid option. I wouldn't doubt it if from like general frame data knowledge that this move is at least -14, maybe even -15 with like significant pushback, kind of similar to Miguel, going back to him. She's not very similar to Miguel, but there are a little bit of similarities, so I wouldn't doubt it. This is at least -14. Okay, and there, actually, come to think of it, I haven't watched this in like super slow motion, but we see the brawler entrance here too, which is kind of interesting. So again, presuming that she only has like 2 options, just like Josie does, that at this position, it wouldn't be very valuable. So I'm not quite sure if that's just a temporary animation or, once again, a proper brawler entrance. Okay, so we see some sort of step kick cancel into LIB stance, of course. Autovation on the new move of Leroy for 3+4, which automatically transitions into Hermit stance. He then goes for Hermit 3-4, which is a low mid attack, and then automatically crushed by Azucena, who is still in LIB stance. So once again, the lean, notice the lean is what's important here. So Azucena, I don't believe, is the one who initiates the 4-3. I think that's completely automated, very similar to Intimidation stance from Negan. Okay, and then performs the grab. Interestingly enough, the grab does have a spark on it. Let's see. Because like I said, I have not watched this in super slow motion. Wow, so no, he's not attacking. So is this actually +11 allows her to link into throw? I mean, if that's the case, that does give credence to the fact that counter hit throws can be escaped. But still interesting. So the quicker throw or counter hit throw, inescapable. And talking about it, we see the arm bar with the neck break, looking very similar to the character from SF5. I can't remember her name. Who the Brazilian character? I think she was. I can't remember. Yeah, I can't remember her name. Sorry, I didn't play too much SF5. It's a story for a different day. Okay, so June goes for forward 2-1, which I believe is safe on block. One of the massive buffs June has got, the ability to cancel quite a lot of punishable options into safer options. Azucena does do a 50-50, and June reads against it without low parry, does the down 3-3-4, and you notice again the blue counter hit sprite, meaning the final hits NCC. Also, very similar animation to the BT 4-3 that we had seen earlier. Now because she's forward facing, it's more similar to Harong, where her inputs are reversed. In case you don't know, with Harong, he always does essentially the same attacks with slight variations, but depending on if you're forward facing or like in Southpaw, BT, you know, such, so on and so on and so on, the inputs are essentially just reversed. So I wouldn't doubt it if this down 334, same thing, is still minus 14. No reason to believe it's not, so. Seeing as how it's essentially a flinch catch option. Okay, balcony break. Oh yeah, into the very spinny, like hop kick, looking very similar to Katarina. I believe up forward 3, if I remember correctly. So for that reason alone, I'm inclined to believe that it actually is. But actually, yeah, that's her left leg. So yeah, I like I said in the video, I'm pretty sure it's an up forward 3, not up back 3. So spin option. Oh yeah, into some sort of 2-1-4 series. There's no real way to tell effectively. We see a movement here, look like forward buffering. It's probably forward 2-1-4, although I can see this being maybe like a back forward 2-1-4 in a similar vein to like Marduk kind of MMA style attack. So also talking about a similar attack, this kind of looks a little bit close to like Kunimitsu 124, talking about earlier how minus 14. Same thing, Kunimitsu 124 is 14, so I wouldn't doubt it if this is also 14. I also wouldn't doubt it if like back forward 2-1 or forward 2-1 can enter into LIB Stance or BT LIB, so I wouldn't doubt it. Okay, forward 2 gets punished by an I-16 punch. I would presume this is up forward, or sorry, probably forward 1+2. And then Asuka's, what do you call it? I don't know if they're on a bray or what. Her hat gets knocked off. That's a nice little touch. Nice little addition there. See the hat falling. So 16 frame heat engager into probably some sort of running 3-4, leading her into LIB Stance, where she scores counter hit. So the question is there anything special with this lead? Because I think she's just forward facing, right? Okay, so actually look at that. So, like I said, I haven't watched this in slow motion. I'm completely, for the most part, cold. Okay, so she does the running 3-4 into BT LIB, into Kissy Kissy, and then she's able to go forward facing off Kissy Kissy into standing LIB. Then she performs an attack out of LIB, it looks like. So maybe LIB does require maybe some sort of special input for follow-up. I'm not too sure, and honestly, the information that we received regarding Azucena doesn't really tell us much, and as mentioned earlier, the fact that they say it's like susceptible to mid, it leaves a lot of questions. Again, can she block in LIB or not? But yeah, we'll get into that. I think that'll be the very next clip we see, so I'll wait for that. Okay, so we see basically a snap kick, 4-1-2 spin option. We also see this animation later. This is probably her Magic 4. Again, Magic 4 attacks have basically gone the way of the dinosaur. So you are forced to go for a high to combo off of it. Although I don't know if you're forced to do 4-1-2. Although if you notice the speed of this, and we're looking at this at quarter time, the 2 comes out really fucking fast. So I wouldn't doubt it if this is a counter launcher. So maybe she even has a mix-up on 4-1 if I'm going to do the 2 or not. Of course, I think at first everyone's going to do it. But yeah, this looks very similar to an animation we see later. So it's probably counter launcher high. Okay, into Heat Smash, which actually is very muted, all things considered. This being her Heat Smash is actually like super muted. Usually it's like excessively animated. I can't really hate on it. Also, I haven't looked at the frame data. Let's take a look here. 1, 2, 3, 4. It looked like 14. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 5, 15. So her Heat Smash is 15. So it looks like it actually has pretty good range. So maybe, oh, actually, no, she dashed in before doing it. Yeah, okay, no way to say for a fact, but double knee 15 frame. That's also presumably safe on block, or maybe even better than safe. Although she ends with the 2 hit, which has appeared to be high. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, we get a little dancing, a little conversation. What's better, cafe or té? And of course, a Monacan? I don't know how you want to call someone from Monaco. The Monacoan? I don't know. I honestly don't know what the verbiage is. Interesting. I'll have to Google that out of curiosity. Okay, so here we go. We see the entrance into LIB, and they show, hey, she can actually walk while in LIB, which executional-wise or balance-wise works, once again, essentially identical to Negan Intimidation Stance. For people who don't know, Negan, once again, can guard highs and mids by holding back, and he can actually reverse lows for launcher by holding neutral. But Negan can actually reverse lows by holding forward. So if your opponent doesn't know that, and they see you walking towards you, with the bat on your back there, oftentimes, like, newer players will mash like a down 4 or a duck jab, and those being S mid also get reversed for full launch by Negan. So yeah, this looks basically, in practicality, essentially identical to Intimidation Stance, which once again leads me to believe that LIB Stance can actually be guarded by simply holding back. Okay, so we see the LIB 2 option causing this big knockaway. I would be inclined to say this is not a launcher, but actually looking at this in slow motion, we see in heat mode in about a minute that this actually is a hard knockdown. But I mean, yeah, it looks like Azucena is almost recovered, but there's no shot this is a launcher, so might as well not talk about it. Okay, 4-1. Again, counter launcher for Lily, which means you have to go for it. We see a backsway looking pretty similar to like Law back 3+4. So I think this is just a backsway option. And also looks a little bit more practical than Katarina's backsway, so that makes it naturally more valuable, period. So okay, so off of heat mode, this is where things get spicy. So she can perform LIB entry off of heat, and what happens as you see these swirlies and the feathers and whatnot, LIB Stance basically has improved properties when you go low or go mid. In this case, Lily goes for some sort of down back 4, and LIB Stance then becomes an instant spin launcher, giving a combo for Azucena. Azucena then does like the jumping kind of overhead wheel kick. Probably not instant running 3-4, although maybe it is, kind of going back to earlier. But this does lead us to perform a balcony break. The balcony break here is kind of interesting because actually I didn't talk about it, and I don't know if I'll be able to find it. But if you look in the background on the stages, there's actually a UFO that's in the sky, and I don't know if we're going to see it here. Probably not now. It's probably earlier in the video. But if you remember correctly from Tekken Tag 2, well, first inclination is this looks just like the Tekken 5 stage, which is probably like Cervantes' stage from Soul Calibur, but made into Tekken 5. So coins all over the floor, and we have like not a pirate for this one, unlike the Tekken 5 stage. We have like a Peruvian idol, and actually, is that a person? They have legs? No, probably just armor. But this area, very reminiscent to Tekken Tag 2 stage, the Utah stage, where same thing, there's actually aliens in that stage. So when you break a part of the wall, and let me jump ahead to it, when you break a certain part of the wall in the Utah stage, the alien will actually get freed out of the wall and go up to their mothership. Now, granted, that's kind of like the end of the Easter egg. It's not like the Chiliad. It's not like the Chiliad mystery that never been solved, or they never actually patched it to solve it. But yeah, it's just a weird kind of thing that, Namco added for lore-wise. So while this is very reminiscent of the T5 stage, it definitely heavily borrows this UFO motif from the Utah stage in Tekken Tag 2. Okay, so this looks like a running 3-2. Notice how Azucena basically keeps up the tradition of female characters having high running attacks. Now, granted, in this running, she initiates with presumably a mid into a high, but maybe like Lee, where you're kind of forced to go the full distance. Maybe running 3 is just devalued for her, and running 3-2 is where actually like the damage comes from or whatnot. In either case, it's still logical because it's a running attack, and she initiates with a knee, versus for like beginner characters who see like running 4s and slash kicks or 3s and stuff like that, where it's like, why can't I reverse their leg? It makes no sense. At the bare minimum, this kind of keeps up with the rules of Tekken, so I like little shit like this that makes it easier for beginners to understand. Okay, so we see some sort of 4 entrance. And actually, let me slow motion it because I'm curious how fast it is. Although I don't think I'm gonna get the frame. Okay, so at least 1. This is probably 2 frames deep. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, 2 frames deep. So this is probably 11 or 12. Standing 4 makes sense. Probably we had seen the 4-1 earlier, but in this case, instead of going for 4-1, kind of similar to the mid-step kick, she doesn't go into the follow-up hit, but rather goes into LIB. In this case, because it leaves her BT, she's a BT LIB or the Kissy Kissy. And then actually she forward face jumps away. So same thing, maybe this is back 3+4. Maybe she's kind of similar in Raven to that sense where Raven can like cancel BT. But this case, she cancels BT by forward face doing the same input, which is kind of spicy to be honest, and a little bit different than what Tekken does. But it's important to note that this entrance into stance is not a Sabaki. So even though she's probably highly evasive of BT LIB to evade, highs and lows, in this case, she didn't Sabaki it. She meaning the Azucena player, just made a read. Okay, so now we're forward facing, same thing. Although this looks more like the Brawler LIB, this is probably its normal LIB simply because of the lean. Or maybe it's 2 sides of the same coin, right? Maybe Brawler LIB and LIB are the same thing. Once again, we simply don't have enough information. But because she's in heat mode, her LIB 2, or I guess LIB 1, sorry, my apologies, is now a hard knockdown. So I don't know if you can get a combo here. Keep in mind, because she's in heat, there is no like heat burst, which is like the bounce system. So at the most she can probably do would be maybe heat smash. I can see maybe heat smash hitting here, or some sort of follow-up hit. But for instance, I don't think like up 4-3 would hit here for a spin or anything. Just follow-up guaranteed attack, probably the best you can do. Okay, so we see a variation on 1-1, 1-2, and there is no counter hit spark, which is once again one of the best things of Tekken 8, is that we can now see that information. Instead, 1-2 is your Punisher. As to whether it causes a proper knockdown or is like a spin like Punisher, kind of similar to Katarina 2-2, is yet to be seen. But more importantly, what we see here is hopefully a sign of balancing in the game and improvements. Currently, or at least in the CNT, whenever you perform a hazard zone effect like this, it would effectively bump the opponent back up into the air, and then you do like a resplat combo and do like a fuck ton of damage, like insane damage, like a little obsessive, or not obsessive. What's the word? I can't think of the word. I'm drawing a blank. But basically, the damage was like crazy. But now, if the opponent is forced open field, even though you can still get a combo here, the damage potential is so much reduced that it's a great change, because as it stood in like CNT with wall positioning and like hazard zone, there are characters who could one-touch kill, and at the bare minimum, the other characters could still do like 60-70% easily. So obviously, give it like a month, and those combos on 70% are probably doing 85-90, maybe even proper OTKs. But yeah, this is a great change. Okay, talking about Josie, we see something similar to Josie 4-3 in the same structure that like Josie 4-3 can guarantee rage arts even in long combos. Azucena does 4-3 front loads into heat burst, which allows her to get pretty good damage and then continue the combo, as we see in a second. Also, because I haven't talked about it in a while, in case you don't know how like Heat Burst really works, so Heat Burst is essentially like a canned animation. But even though, look how close like Lily is to hitting the ground, right? Even though you popped Heat Burst, time freezes, and it more than freezes, it actually freezes after the effect as well. And what happens is there is a 2-frame window after the freeze, which is where time picks back up again. Not every character in this video I was meaning to make but never made. Not every character has a 2-frame parry. For instance, Leroy back 2 activates on I3. So like Leroy can't back 2 this, but a character like Jin, or you know another character I'm not going to say because I don't want to give too much away. Characters with parries and Sabaki's activating on frame 2. So those characters become naturally more valuable in this game because Heat Burst honestly is a silly mechanic. So here we go. So the freeze ends, frame 1, frame 2. So it hits 2 frames later. So once again, if you're playing a Jin or a redacted character here, you can actually punish Heat Burst, which is one of the reasons why Heat Burst overall is not a great mechanic, but that's, again, a conversation for a later day. Okay, so we see here Heat Burst, so basically bound effect, leaving Azucena with meter. Azucena performs probably an up back 3 or some sort of animation. Back 3, I can't really say. This move doesn't really look like anything else in the game. Proper. Yeah, it's like an overhead kick, and there's no double tap on this animation for her movement, so it's probably not forward 4-3. It's a single directional input. But this move, more importantly, can be heat dash canceled, which means that it's also heat engager. So maybe an overhead counter launcher, I doubt it, but we'll see. We'll see. Okay, so heat dash into down forward 3-2, looking very similar to like Lydia down forward 4 series and whatnot. Also notice like hella push away, and seeing as how we started this combo effectively at the other wall, how few hits there are in this combo, and to basically get almost full screen. You know how I talked about how it's great that they're adding this, so it's like, oh, you can't do 1,000,000 damage. But yeah, again, certain characters might be naturally more valuable getting to wall. It's probably one of the reasons why in Tekken 8, infinite stages are gone, but there are stages that are gigantic, and realistically you aren't getting to the wall even in a single round. But here, I mean, look at how far she is. Azucena with basically 5 hits, carried 75% of the stage. Now granted, if the wall was here, this would be a low slump, so it's a little bit of hyperbole, but the point still remains. It's a little bit silly. Okay, so last and definitely least, we see the big overhead, the big hook counter hit launcher. No way to actually tell the frame data because when Namco cuts the rage arts, they cut the animation really early. Oh, actually here, maybe only in frame 1 or frame 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, no, we're in freeze time. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, there's no way for us to actually determine the hit here. I would imagine this is like 13, probably 14 realistically. In a similar vein, it kind of acts very similar to Brian Sway 1, a brand new move in Tekken 8, of course. But I imagine this is not a replacement for a 4-1, because that would defeat the purpose, right? Having a 13-frame or 12-frame hook launcher, and this does counter hit crumple stun. So we get the animation, and then of course Azucena pops her rage art immediately after. So yeah, that will basically do it. She looks to be interesting. As I talked about, I believe she's going to be a beginner character. I think she was designed that way, kind of similar to how Katarina was originally designed to be a beginner character as well, and has kind of evolved over the years to be more advanced. That's not to say you can't succeed with Azucena. Once again, it kind of really hinges on the fact if LIB Stance allows for guarding or whatnot. But yeah, if you can guard in LIB, I mean, Azucena is going to be very, very strong. And if you can't guard in LIB, Azucena is probably going to be very, very bad. At the same time,
Who knows? Maybe this will be more matchup dependent. Again, there are characters with pretty shitty mids, but for the most part, everyone has like a 15 frame launcher. So, yeah, I have to imagine Azucena will be able to guard in LIB Stance. Realistically, it's not going to happen. And again, the information that we received regarding the stance from Namco directly, keep in mind, it's not a spoiler or anything, is probably a mistranslation or not quite properly conveyed. So the fact that it's a vulnerable to mids probably literally just means that she can't evade mids. But that, again, doesn't necessarily mean, which would be more like a literal English kind of definition, doesn't mean she gets hit by mids for free. But we'll see. We'll see. I really liked Katarina when she first came out as a beginner character. Really cool. They can do a lot of like really cool manual combos with her. Of course, Namco got rid of them, and I'll never forgive Namco for it. But Azucena looks to be a pretty good addition to the game, and I can't wait to play her and play the other characters. Like, I'm happy for my boy Dragunov coming back. Let's go, Drag. Although I don't know if he's going to be very good or not. But as usual, comments, questions, concerns, hit me up in the comments, YouTube, Reddit, Twitch, Twitter. Otherwise, if you have anything else, feel free to PM me or whatnot. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Later, guys.